So if you were coming to mine in Hucknall, you had nowhere to live, you would stay here. So this did a lot of trade from miners as they came to the town. Right, Alice, can you get that photograph out? The task is then, you're going to tell me where this is so we can take exactly the same picture of what this is like today.
It's going to be somewhere down that way there.
Okay then, right, lead on.
Mike Endy is bringing the history of Hucknall alive for these Year 10s. They're getting out of the classroom and searching for clues on the legacy and impact of coal mining on their town. As well as building their history skills, the aim of this local history project is for pupils to develop a greater appreciation of their own community and understand how their town has become what it is today.
The big deal with local history is that because of all the national histories we do, if you're not careful, that's what they see. Everything is national history. They forget that there's actually history on their doorstep. A project like this brings it back home, that it's not all about kings and queens, it's not all about government acts of parliament, it's actually about people. And that's one of the things you can do when you do local history.
Mike has been able to draw on a range of resources and support from the local community for this 12-week project. We'll observe 3 key lessons as the pupils work towards 3 assignments. This unit is part of the new OCR GCSE History Pilot, where there's an emphasis on coursework.
We thought the pilot would be particularly useful and relevant because it seemed to have the things in it we knew our students would want to do. If they could see there was a significance and a relevance to it, then they would be more inclined to actually get involved and take part properly. Today's lesson then, what we're going to do is we're aiming to show you how Hucknall changed through the 19th century because of the arrival of the pits.
This early lesson is working towards their first assignment, the impact of coal mining on Hucknall in the 19th century.
So we're going to look at some information from before the arrival of the pits and some information after, and let you draw some conclusions. So what we're doing, interpretations. A number of students chose the pilot, but because they could only offer it in one option pool, we ended up with this fairly gentle little group of 11. We'll be also going on to do some evaluation of the same evidence. So I want to start off with the first source, source F, okay? So this is a source by a man who lived in Hucknall in 1850. The aim is to take students fairly slowly at first through a range of sources, things like personal opinions and accounts of Hucknall, trade directories, and get them to see from there what they can actually learn about Hucknall at the time.
An open sewer ran down the main street. The other thoroughfares were called lanes. The roads were rutty and there were no side paths. Unemployed stocking makers were set to break stones at £1 a day. Food was dear, a sheep's head being a much prized dish, and stuffed pluck a relish, because the people were forced to be vegetarians most of the week.
What do you think stuffed pluck was, Jordan?
I don't know. Is it like a stuffed bird or something?
A stuffed bird, yes, chicken. Can you turn over the sheet now? And you've got a trade directory. Now, a trade directory is like a Thomson Local today. It tells you every business and every person who wants to. The challenges are that they don't know a lot of the material. So trade directories, although you can relate them to Thomson Locals and things like that, the actual content is then so very different. The very fact it is on one sheet of paper does give you some idea that Hucknall was not a big place at this time. So they'll see a village with lime burners and needle makers. They will say, well, what's one of those and what's one of these? And bobbin makers. What does it mean? Try and work out what you can tell about Hucknall in the period before the mines.
It shows that quite a lot of people did farming.
And why do you know that from the sheet?
Because there's a list of lots of people's names.
For farmers, yeah.
Good.
The great thing about local history is there are lots of resources and you can tap into the local community, the library, local historians, heritage groups, and they will provide you with lots of information if you only ask.
The number of poor receiving parochial relief weekly, 657. House row men out of employ receiving relief weekly.
One of the best sources to use is the census data. First of all, it gives you occupations, which obviously when you're trying to pinpoint the value of mining is absolutely essential. We've now looked at 3 pieces of evidence before the coming of the pits, and you should be getting some general themes. Some in some sources, some supported by more than one source. Lindsay, why is that particularly good if the information appears in two different sources?
Then you know it's more likely to be true.
That's right. That's almost going into the idea of evaluation. So we've got this idea that if it's in more than one source, it's likely to be fairly trustworthy. So we're now going to look at some information from afterwards. OK, off you go then, Blake.
Having driven out to Nottingham, I alighted on the marketplace of the little town of Hucknall Torkard on a pilgrimage to the grave of Byron. On that day it appeared at its worst, for the widest part of its main street was filled with stalls, benches, wagons
thronged with rough, dirty and noisy persons intent on the barter and traffic, and not indisposed to the boisterous pranks and mirth, as they pushed and jostled each other along the crowded booths.
Alex, what did this guy think about Hucknall?
Probably the worst place he's been to, I guess.
What is he actually telling us about the changes to Hucknall?
We know that he's like not lying about it, so that he's trying to make it look like it's worse, but for us it's making it look good.
Very good. So you've just done a piece of evaluation there. Look at some of the
It
material
fascinated me
about
how many
mining
people actually
to
did
make
the
sure
job of mining, because there was only like one
changes
blacksmith, one shopkeeper, and just one of everything, and then there was like 307 miners, and it's just like, I would have thought people had done a lot more.
So we have got this very clear picture now, hopefully in our heads, of how things are changing. I just want to very briefly... So the overall effect is that they are part of the way towards being able to do the first assignment of 3 on how important the mining industry was for Hucknall during the 19th century. Trade Directory for 1832, less than 1 sheet. For 1895, the same document stretching over several pages.
Go left on the roundabout, first exit.
4 weeks later, Mike takes small groups of pupils to the Mansfield Heritage Centre, where they get a first-hand look at some primary sources for their next assignment, a PowerPoint presentation on coal mining in the 20th century.
The Mansfield Heritage Centre, I basically saw an advert in the Evening Post and thought it might be useful for this new assignment.
What we keep here are all the coal mine abandonment plans. These are plans which have to be kept by law, and the law was in 1872 that anybody who works coal in this country must deposit a plan or a series of plans depending on how extensive the mining is. It's almost like bringing out a roller carpet.
And even though I didn't really know, well, this is going to fit exactly here because there was so much information, I just thought that different students would hit on different things.
This is an example of a very old plan. This plan is well over 100 years old. 12th of May 1892. The person who worked the coal would have to pay a royalty for how much coal is taken out. Now that would probably be 1 old penny a tonne. Now, this is a much smaller scale.
Do you think you could find the school on the map?
There's the library.
Yeah,
So the centre's
this is the
here.
centre.
We're out this way, aren't we?
Once you find where the school is, you should be able to then decide where you actually live yourself.
I live here.
Round
Because
back.
Nottingham Rise is right next to it.
So where's Tesco's on the map?
Tesco's
They
is built
got
on the side.
some research skills. They also got a lot of information that was probably not available anywhere else, and it just filled in quite a lot of details about what actually a mine's like.
And what's happened is the weight's come on so much, it's pushed the rings into the floor. You know, children like you would have worked underground. Yeah, and you just used to open the doors.
Although it's only 20 years ago, you're talking about things that are basically alien to them now, so there was a lot of explaining to do.
And it would be a huge banner that would come along on wheels with Hucknall on.
They got little nuggets of information which they were able to put into various parts of the assignment.
At the end of the module, the pupils work towards their final assignment on the strike and pit closures. And what better way to gather more evidence than to interview 2 men who experienced these events at first hand.
It was a job of work, but it wasn't a bad life. Yeah, it wasn't a bad life.
We decided to bring the miners into school, and the really purpose of that was to get really a different slant on things.
My granddaughter come home and she says, Grandad, Mr. Endy wants somebody that's worked at the pit to come and talk to the school children. Would you do it? And I thought, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do anything for you, like.
Any questions?
You can't just invite miners in and get the students to ask them questions because they wouldn't know what to ask them questions about. So therefore we had to do quite a lot of work first and make sure they were aware about the strike of 1984 and also about the closure of 1986.
You know, because you didn't strike at all, did anyone fall out with you, or did it cause problems?
I didn't have much trouble at all.
We did. We had quite a bit of trouble. I did. I've still got blokes that don't talk to me.
John, why didn't you go on strike?
If I was going to go on strike, I wanted a democratic vote, and I would abide by the result.
What do you think of Arthur Scargill?
I've got mixed feelings about the fella. He was a good leader, but he sent his troops down to Nottinghamshire to force us out without a democratic vote.
How well do you think the government handled the strike? Unless you actually ask them or read something that they've wrote, you'll never ever know what it is. So they could have opinions that will literally go to the grave if they never tell anybody.
Did the closure of the mines surprise you?
Our colliery was doomed to close.
Looking at source evidence, it don't really tell you from regular people's point of views, it's from like writers. So if you think about it from their point of view, they were actually going down there and doing the works.
It was fantastic. I loved it, didn't you? They're a good set of lads. Everybody worked together, didn't they?
Worked together.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
It's nice to know about the camaraderie and how they work together, because you think it's just they come in for the day's work and then they go back out, but it's not. It's they enjoyed it. Closure. What has coal mining left Hucknall?
Hucknall was born and brought and built on industry, two industries, coal mining and hosiery. Now they've closed the collieries, they've closed all the hosiery factories. So the legacy to Hucknall is very much worse off.
Well, legacy is something that you've got left from, or how it's affected the place.
Legacy can as well be like community spirit, because before that people weren't used to working together, but now they've got things to talk about and things.
We've got coal mining, and from that we've got Tesco's, Aldi and Iceland on that land.
And that is that pit. So you can imagine how big this was.
And we've got the statue as well, and they're all part of the legacy of coal mining, so it's what's been left from that.
They were family owned, that's right. So you've got the shop at the bottom and then you've got room to live above. Legacy implies ability to go back into the past. So if a building has largely been built because of something, then that in a way is a legacy. Money, so that's why we got shop after shop all appearing at roughly the same time. Because so much of the building work that's done in Hucknall came from that period, you've immediately got a legacy. We know it was built by 1895 because it appears in the 1895 trade directory. But
maybe if it wasn't for coal mining in Hucknall, we might not be here because of the fact that before no one left and no one came into Hucknall. But then coal mining encouraged people to come in from outside, from Nottinghamshire and other places as well.
Although they often found it quite difficult and challenging at times, they really seemed to enjoy it, doing about their town, and perhaps things that up till then they hadn't really thought about.
And now I've learned about this, you can have a conversation with your mama or older generation of your family.
The great thing was that the community itself got involved. The ex-miners were very happy to lend a hand, and so were lots of other people, and I think the community and the school have linked over this.